Hey there, welcome. Today I'd like to share about a particular experience that I had that literally revealed to me something profound that I believe you do not have to necessarily go through for you to be aware of. Now, recently I was in a situation where I was having a heated and more of a complicated discussion about a very raw and sensitive topic with someone. And we basically had opposing views about a particular situation. However, those opposing views weren't necessarily backed by facts or evidence on both sides. But at the same time, there was a bit of a harmful, toxic, and literally debilitating environment within which we were having the discussion that did not warrant or encourage more fruitful, critical analysis of particular thoughts and beliefs, and also allowing for adjustment or acceptance or relegating situations whereby something makes more sense. And it was more of, let's say, someone or people literally standing their ground whether or not it makes sense, and in the event that you are starting to make sense, then unnecessary pieces of information are grabbed at from across the sky to basically just cripple and debilitate you. Now, I am someone who can debate. I can hold my own in a conversation, I can hold my own in a debate, and most of the time, even while I can hold my own, I am not necessarily against changing my mind, or I'm not necessarily anti justifications, rational explanations of facts, and being able to allow the other party to explain themselves, and also giving them time to flesh out whatever their stance is. Now, even while I am very willing and ready to debate and literally break down and dissect a particular concept or theory, I am not necessarily down for hurtful, toxic, and literally violent and aggressive discourse. Now, there are situations whereby you someone, and maybe you are in a professional environment or they are your friends, and maybe for a long time you have not necessarily gone deep into certain sensitive and complicated topics. And I do realize that very many times, especially in professional environments, we kind of sometimes try to avoid particular topics that will expose our differences or create situations whereby someone has to apparently be wrong or has to change their stance on something, or someone has to justify their beliefs and explain why they believe what they believe. So usually issues of religion, sex, race, political conflict, war, very many times are not necessarily encouraged in particular conversations, because they will literally antagonize and expose the different opinions that we have, and very many times we feel like we cannot relate or share spaces with people who have differing opinions, so we rather not even know about them. And that's really an unspoken rule that people live by in very many professional situations. And very many times if somebody asks you about your particular beliefs on particular things, you side eye them and you wonder, why do you want to know? Are you trying to use this against me? So you try not to go deep into certain sensitive topics unless it is warranted or it has been brought up. So in this particular situation, something of the sort kind of was brought up, and this wasn't really a too sensitive of a topic, but basically we were debating a particular thing, and the debate was going on, and issues are being brought up, facts are being brought up, receipts are being brought up, and then when someone starts saying that their point is clearly not making sense, and ideally they should be able to retreat, or at least relegate an inch and accept that maybe at the moment I'm not able to carry on this discussion, or I don't have enough facts about this. I strongly disagree with you, but I don't have the facts to carry my conversation. However, so for the moment I will put a pause on this and maybe come back. Now, instead of someone necessarily in a fluid way, kind of ending the conversation or naturally halting the conversation, the person starts going below the belt, starts trying to attack your person and not necessarily the conversation or the concept being debated. Now, usually, if you're someone who is good at debate or likes to or likes certain conversations to have a natural conclusion, you will somehow be unaware that someone is actually attacking you, the person, and not necessarily debating the concept or the theory of what is being discussed. Now, very many times when you realize that someone is unable to actually debate about a particular concept, and if someone is unable to separate their particular beliefs and how beliefs can evolve as knowledge grows and improves and more facts are being made aware, that doesn't necessarily harm you as a person, because you only know what you have been exposed to. So you being ignorant doesn't necessarily mean that you are a fool or you're stupid or you are whatever it is, but it just means that maybe in that moment you are unaware of something, and ideally, if you don't know something and it has been brought onto you, you're free to actually learn about it. But if when in the moment you are unaware of something and some other person clearly has a better argument, or not even better, but maybe a more fleshed out and more justifiable argument, in the moment in the moment you are unable to naturally accord them that due respect, and you would rather attack their person, then you should be aware that such a person isn't someone who you would necessarily love or allow yourself to be across from in a debate. Now, one thing that I had forgotten, because it had been a while since I had been debating with someone who was that kind of person, I had forgotten that actually you don't necessarily have to engage in debates with people who clearly cannot apply the principles of professional, respectful, cordial, and a knowledge-based conversation. If someone cannot, one, give you your due respect and also concede when something does make sense, then there's no point in arguing with them, because whatever sense you make, whatever receipts you bring up, they will not accept, because as a person, their principle is I am right and no one should tell me differently. Now, when I was debating with this person, in various aspects, I would say they had more power. In terms of age, maybe profession, and various aspects, you would say that you would say that they have more power. But in the context of the debate, age, power, titles had no bearing, because we were debating a particular concept. So whoever had the facts would be the one who would ideally make more sense. So now, when the debate was necessarily not going in their favor, that is when issues of age, title, gender, that's when all those things start coming up. And now when you realize that in a debate someone now starts bringing the fact that you're a female, or the fact that you're this age, or the fact that you are whatever attribute you may have as a person has no bearing on the conversation, then you must know that that is a harmful and a toxic person to be engaging with, not just in discourse, but maybe in other aspects, because most likely there are people who will not necessarily give the right reporting of what was spoken about. There are people who will not accept when things do not make sense. So even when they are tasked to give account of what happened, they'll probably not be true and accurate in their speech or in their report. And there are people who generally you would not like to go back and forth with, because they literally just kind of they distort truth and facts in their favor and aren't willing to accept when they are wrong. And in that moment, I came to realize that very many times we kind of lower our guards and make ourselves available to people and everyone, and allow ourselves to get into debates and discourses that we don't necessarily have to, and with people who we would not consciously allow ourselves to debate with. But in the spirit of looking at painting everybody with a similar brush, we do not make those distinctions about who and where and what we are discussing and with whom, honestly. So I would just like to inform you that there are periods when you must protect your space, you must protect your mind, you must protect your well-being, and also the things that you allow to give strength to and thought to and speech to, and with whom that thought, speech, and action is directed towards and besides. So this is basically to just, especially to those who are willing to speak about complicated concepts and theories, and who most of the time at least have go the extra mile and do research and read about particular concepts, so that in the event that you are discussing something, you actually have the facts. So very many times people discuss things with a surface degree of knowledge. So when you eventually meet someone who actually has facts and history, and you have been used to myopically debating about particular things, you will either concede and allow that, okay, in this moment I am not well equipped to debate about this, so can we postpone this conversation, or you will use other hurtful weapons to tarnish the conversation and potentially cripple their credibility about discussing that particular thing, because you cannot meet them at a discourse level. You just like to attack their person. You get? Now, if you are someone who is willing to engage in debate, and you are not conscious that sometimes you do not have to engage in debates with everyone, and when you realize that things are not necessarily going your way or are not necessarily safe and ethical, it's okay to not have the last word. It's okay to just prematurely end the conversation. Even at times you can consider and say, you know what, fine, cool, cool. You don't necessarily say you win, but you can just say, fine, it's okay, I hear you, because you would ideally find yourself responding to any, whether shallow or any rebuttal that comes your way, but you don't even have to rebut. Sometimes if you really feel like it's not safe, it's not an encouraged environment, it's okay to just say, it's okay, it's fine, I heard you, great speech, I have nothing to add, or I refuse to add to this conversation anymore. And that, in a way, gives you back your peace and gives you back your decision making and gives you back an authority that potentially is being misused against you. And most of the time, in such a space where where the principles of debate and discourse aren't being followed, there even won't be a fruitful and logical conclusion to that conversation. So it's actually okay to protect your peace. Anyway, that's basically what I was led to share with you, and I hope this has helped somebody who usually goes into debates and discourses, but sometimes you are caught unaware by people who aren't true or have integrity.